From Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA, and the home of hot chicken, it's the Rick Altizer Show. Sit back, buckle up. Rick will talk with the movers, shakers, and creators who put Christ in Christian entertainment. He's a man who's clear so the world can hear. Here's Rick Altizer.
Hey, thanks for joining me today. I am in the studio here in Franklin, the art studio of a very creative, he's an artist, photographer, entrepreneur, author. The list goes on and on of what he is, but he is Jeremy Cowart. And Jeremy, thanks for being on the show today.
Of course, good to be here. Thank you, Rick.
I'm glad to get here. This is great. I'm in this art studio with paintings and lights and, photography, art. So I kind of mentioned earlier, there's a long list of things you do. So if you're at a dinner party and someone comes up to you, hey, so Jeremy, tell me, what do you do? How do you answer that question?
Yeah, it's a little bit loaded, and I don't say that to brag. I think it's actually more of a bad thing than it is a good thing, but I do a lot, scatterbrained. I guess I say I'm just an artist. I do a lot of photography. I'm building a hotel, those are the main things I'm currently up to.
You've written 4 books, is that correct?
No, I've been a part of 5 books, but I've written 1.
Okay.
Yes. The others were photography projects, and my newest book, I'm Possible, is the one it's my autobiography, it's my life story.
I'm Possible, yeah. And there's a great video on that as well on your website. People can get information by going to Jeremy Cowart. That's Cowart. Mm-hmm. Cow and art.
That's right.
Cows and art just go together with you, Jeremy.
Right. Yeah, guess so.
And some of your photography, you've photographed Sting, you've photographed, celebrities, Christian artists, Lauren Daigle, the list kind of goes on and on. So there's all kinds of creative, I would say you're one of the creatives in the Christian media makers. You're one of the creative type, and which I love that, kind of looking at things from a different perspective. So can we talk about kind of how you got into this? How are we sitting here in the Jeremy Cowart studio? How did that all happen?
Well, it helped that I was born in Nashville. So I've been in the industry my entire life. My dad was in the Christian music industry growing up. And so I literally, grew up in the industry. I was singing as a kid, even on records as a 8-year-old.
Oh, doing kids' records?
Well, yeah, anytime an artist would need children's vocals, they would hire our little group. So I sang on Amy Grant and Sandy Petty and Michael W. Smith records back in the 80s.
Oh, fantastic.
So I've literally been a CCM kid, person my whole life, I guess. Yeah, that's crazy. So, and then, I went to college here in town, and I've just always been around other creatives and musicians, and eventually started creating for my friends. So it all just happened organically. And thankfully, things worked out well, and I've been able to make a career out of it.
So how did it, did you start with the camera? Is that where it kind of started?
No, I started with painting, then it switched to graphic design and web design. I was a designer for probably 7 years before I even started shooting at all. So then the cameras, my buddy Jimmy Begg said I should start shooting. So I picked up a camera and decided to take his word and fell in love with the process of shooting. And now I've been doing that for 14, 15 years.
Jimmy A. Begg, the guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Steve Taylor and different people.
Mm-hmm.
And so you started with Photoshop, kind of working in Photoshop. And what was your schooling in graphic design?
Yeah, I studied graphic design at Middle Tennessee State and learned Photoshop and all the fun, software in school. And thankfully, I still use all that software to this day. I love Photoshop. So yeah.
And so then let's talk then about the creative process. You do so many things where you blend. Watching what you do, you'll take different genres and you'll blend photography with design, with art, and it kind of creates this very unique people, you need to go to jeremycowart.com and kind of look at the stuff he's done and watch some of the videos there and see some of the artwork. It's very unique. It's very so it's coming from a mind that's seeing things from a different perspective. So can we talk about just how you developed that creative process of how you kind of found your own style and your own thing that you do?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I've just always drawn the way I draw and create since high school. My paintings that aren't in high school looked a lot like these. And so I don't know why or how or what. It's in me and it's dying to get out. I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, which is the individualist. I always have to do things differently and dress differently. In high school I would, in college. And so, yeah, my art is a bit weird and a bit dark and abstract, but those are the painters I admire. And, I don't know, I just like to let loose and distort faces. And, I just love to play. Basically, this whole studio is just a big toy box, a box of sand for me to create in. It's a blast.
And I noticed there are the faces, there's so many things going on in the face and in where you'll put many elements together that are blended. It's almost a cacophony. It's almost in some points it's wild. And so what about that appeals to you, that kind of that creative, that look of I'm not just interested in a face, because then on the other hand you'll do photography and very great poses, very great photos where you are getting that face. So talk about the difference between those two and what you like about both.
It's funny, a few weeks ago I had this realization about my art that when I'm shooting, I am directing the subject and I'm directing the shot and I know what I want. When I'm creating art, fine art, I feel like I'm being directed because I just let loose and start drawing and painting, and I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm going to do or why I'm doing it. It just comes out of me, and it's therapeutic. And if other people like it, great. If they don't, that's okay too. In fact, it's really understandable considering how weird a lot of my expressionism is. But it's just one of those things that you got to let out.
I mean, it's interesting though that there is this duality of the art, which is very modern. It's not an exact representation. It's a very complete, as you said. It's just this kind of letting it go, and it's very different looking. But then with the photography, it's very clean. And a lot of your subjects I've seen where you do great shots of recording artists or different things. It's very clean look. Talk about the difference of that. What do you think? What do you think that is? Is that?
Oh, it's the difference of commercialism versus personal work. A lot of photography is clean as it has to be. I shoot for clients that I have to help them sell a product. Usually, that product is a person, and so I'm very good. And most photographers are very good at figuring that out and using nice light and learning how to make people look really nice, and flattered. And then in the personal work, I throw all those rules out the door and do what I want to do. And my art is not clean or, it's the opposite. And so it's fun to juggle those differences for sure.
I'd like to just examine some of your own personal art, and kind of like what's underneath, where that's coming from. So if you don't mind, we'll just kind of talk about your past and some of your own experiences. In your book, I'm Possible, and in the video that you did for that, which I saw, which I loved, by the way. I loved just how that came together and how that looked, and it was so creative the way you put it together.
Cool. Thank you.
You're telling this narrative story of yourself, of your life, but it's done in such a creative, fresh way, which I love.
Thanks.
Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and some of what I'm Possible, what that means, and let's unpack I'm Possible and what that means.
Sure. Yeah. Growing up, I was Very average. I thought I was very below average. Didn't make good grades and kind of just was pretty content to blend in and not be special or not be the talented kid. You know, I was just very quiet and shy. And so my dad would always, encourage me to do things, talk about my grades, or I would try to be a great baseball player. And I would always say, I can't do this. I can't play piano, or I can't hit a ball, or I can't make good grades. And he would always hammer Philippians 4:13 in my head, to the point where I got really annoying. I could predict the words coming out of his mouth. Which is, if I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so that kind of became his almost cliche, calling card, because I just hear it all the time.
I can do all things through Christ. Just pouring that over you, a father. Just
which is amazing. I mean,
yes.
I love that he did that, but at the time,
that's beautiful.
As a kid, you're just annoyed by it. All right, Dad, I got it. But I do think eventually, as adults, we start to believe those things that are hammered into us, and so then, I go. I got fired from my first job. I was told I wasn't creative enough. I made a D in my photography class, nearly failed photography, because I just had no interest in shooting at the time. And so, there was a lot of setbacks in my life, like most people's. But I started to believe, that I could do anything. And so then I share the story of my successes in my career. And but then I realized those weren't fulfilling or important. So how do I find work that is fulfilling? So then it goes into all the nonprofit and humanitarian work I've done over the years. That's kind of the story. I mean, the story in a very short nutshell.
So talk about that transition from I can't do this to something's happening and I'm starting to believe that through Christ I can do this. Let's talk about that. Your personal relationship with Christ and how that made that change in you.
Yeah, I mean, there was no quick transition, obviously. I mean, a transition like that of believing in yourself, for me, happened over many, many years. I started to realize that I was good at, things, creative things, despite what I was told. And I believe that God is the giver of all creativity. And I realized over time that at the core, I'm just an idea person. I just constantly have ideas. And I think that those are all God-given. So I just feel like I need to be a good steward of the ideas He gives me and how to bring those to life, whether it's a global hotel chain or, humanitarian project after a hurricane or a photo shoot. So I'm always just trying to execute the ideas God gives me. That was, I would say, throughout my 20s, the slow transition from I'm not very good at anything to, I actually do have some talent and I can, I'm pretty creative. And so, that was in the 30s and now 40s. I'm 42 now, so trying to expand on all that.
You're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio, and my guest today is a creative person who was told he wasn't very creative, but he actually is probably one of the more creative people in the Christian community, Jeremy Cowart. And so, I mean, I think that's so interesting. You're told you're not creative enough, and I mean, I would say hands down, you're definitely in for those people who are professing Christians. You're one of the more creatives that I know. So. I just think that's interesting. Can we talk about your personal relationship with Christ and kind of how that transition in your life? Here's this Father pouring into you, I can do all things through Christ. I can do all things through Christ. There's a direction in that I can do all things, but it's not through myself. It's through Christ. So it's so great that He's telling you, you can do this, and He's telling you how you do it. It's through, it's not through yourself. It's through this relationship you have with Jesus. Can we talk about your relationship with Jesus and kind of like how that then transitioned and just how you saw yourself?
Yeah. I mean, again, God's the ultimate creator. He's the ultimate inspiration. I feel like, I'm most inspired when people ask, so what inspires you? I'm like, well, creation does. It sounds cheesy, but I love flying because when I fly and looking down on the world that God created, I'm just so in awe of him and how tiny I am and how really, really insignificant I am, in the grander scheme of things. And it's always such a beautiful, humbling experience to get up high and look down on the world below us. But yeah, I mean, I'm always amazed at the way God works. Like my career is always, I can tie really weird things back to specific moments where God breathed, an idea in me. Like in 2012, April 30th in 2012, I was walking through a hotel for a photo shoot, and God told me to build a global hotel chain.
A global hotel chain.
Yeah, and not only the hotel chain, but specifically everything about it and why, and the name for it, and the tagline for it, and the concept down to the products in the rooms and all of that within about a 2-minute window and one moment in LA. And that's now what I'll spend the rest of my life doing.
And tell me a little bit about that. Yeah,
so we're building a hotel where everything in the building will be connected to causes and nonprofits. So just by staying in our hotel, you'll be, quote unquote, changing the world in your sleep. So you'll feed a child in need through food for the hungry when you order room service. You'll be fighting sex trafficking when you upgrade your internet fee. Your room will sponsor a child and tell their story. Your soaps and shampoos will come from Thistle Farms. That's 4 out of about 50 things that you'll be doing just by staying in our hotel.
So every aspect of the hotel is benefiting a nonprofit.
Yep.
So is the hotel itself profitable, or is it a nonprofit?
It's a for-profit. It would not work as a nonprofit. For-profit, trying to help as many nonprofits as possible.
So instead of getting shampoos from a shampoo maker, which you got to pay for anyway, you're then buying it from Thistle Farms, which is a wonderful ministry here in Nashville that's helping women get off the streets and who've been sex trafficked, and helping them find a new way. So taking these resources that the hotel is going to naturally give to you're going to put them into nonprofit organizations that are going to then help. That's what a great idea.
Thank you.
What a great idea.
Excited.
And how is that going? How's that hotel working out? How is the process of that going? I mean, obviously that's a huge project.
Yeah. It's excruciating. It's awful. It's all the bad words that I can think of is how I would say it. The journey is. Because, I had the idea 7 years ago, and we're 7 years in, almost 8 years. Did nothing for 3 years because I was so afraid of it. So really we're almost 5 years into actually working on it. And it is more complex than anything you could ever imagine. I mean,
and we're talking millions of dollars, I would imagine.
Yeah, the first building will be at around $150 million. So,
oh my!
And not only are we building that building, but then we're building a brand new brand itself, and we're taking an industry that's already complex, and we're making it much, much more complex because what we're doing is not a simple hotel solution. It is very, very complex. So, it's a beast.
Wow.
I wish I could say this is a blast, but it's
been hard.
It's awful, yeah.
Isn't it interesting? God gives you a vision and something. He'll give you something to do. And we think, since God gave it to me, it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. When I say it's awful, it's not awful. Like the weight is awful because I'm not a patient person. So it's been really hard to... I have to figure out how to keep doing other stuff. Well, it's like I have to figure out how to continue my careers while I wait for my career to start. And so it's just a weird, thing.
I can imagine it just be overwhelming.
Yeah, and I have all these ideas for it that I can't, it'll be a decade when we open our doors back to when I had the idea. So 10 years of your life to try to wait for one idea to come to life, it's hard.
But that one idea has hundreds and hundreds of other ideas attached to it.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that's not just one idea. Mm-hmm. It's a big idea.
Yeah, it's huge.
And where will the first hotel be? Will it be here in Nashville?
It'll be in Nashville, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you have funding, sponsors who are interested? And
we have our land now. We have management company, our architects and designers and investors. And, yeah, it's all very real.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. What a big idea, Jeremy, from a guy who took pictures and did some graphic design, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just amazing how God leads and guides us and, you know, sit in front of a computer, do some graphic design too.
Yeah.
I think let's start a hotel where all the money goes to charity.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's not all the money goes to charity, but yeah, it's a lot of charities will be helped through what we're doing. Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it does give people a sense, I want to stay in that hotel.
Mm-hmm.
My company is going to pay $250 for me to stay somewhere.
Yep.
Let's do it here where I know that money is going to go help people.
Yep.
You know, and that's great. It's great. It's a huge idea.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Now, some of your other ideas where you did photos of hurricane relief and did things where you were encouraging support that way, which can we talk a little bit more about some of those things that you've done as well? Those are a little bit smaller scale.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love to use ideas to respond in times of need and figure out how can I, use an idea and a camera to go respond and help tell a story in a different way. And so I've done that quite a bit, probably 8 projects I've done around the world, various capacities.
And what? Let's talk about like one of the hurricane projects you did. What was that about?
Yeah, and after a hurricane in Florida went down, and we actually, I had this idea to try to take advantage of horrible scenes, because once these hurricanes come through, rip apart a neighborhood, they sit there for weeks, if not months on end, and there's nothing anybody can do yet, someone can't just personally pick up their whole house and rebuild it. They have to wait for contractors and wait for all the legalities of everything. So I had this idea to go down and how can I take these awful scenes and make them beautiful and sell fine art prints of the scenes and then give 100% of that money back to the people who lost. So can I take their ugliness and make it beautiful and in a way that helps them legitimately? And so we use this really fascinating technique of projecting words in thin air using this tool called a pixel stick. It's like a hologram, basically. So it's like you're photographing a hologram in the middle of the air, in the middle of the night. It was a crazy idea because it was just so technically challenging. We're out there, 2 a.m. shooting in swamp, crocodile, snake-infested waters with this really expensive gear,
projecting a hologram in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So
my assistant's literally walking, knees up, water, trying with really expensive lights and gear, trying to make these photos come to life. Yeah,
so the holograms aren't something you're doing in post-production. You're not doing it in Photoshop.
Nope.
These are actually words in the air that you're saying. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what would be what would the word say?
We used a mixture of things the victims would say because we'd interview them, and if they said something inspiring, we would project that, or we would find different inspirational quotes that felt relevant to I can't remember them off the top of my head. It's all on my website. Inspirational quotes. I have a bunch of writer friends that I would get to add some thoughts. It was really a fun project, but so challenging.
And then you would take these photos, make fine print art of them, sell them.
Yeah.
And then all the money goes to the victims.
Exactly.
100%.
Yep. 100%.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't make money off any of my humanitarian projects. I just for me, if a photo story can legitimately help them, then I'm happy.
Well, that's just a little bit of some of the things you've done, and I mean, we could go on and on. And I encourage you. We're out of time.
Yeah,
pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I encourage you to go check out JeremyCowart.com. See some of the things he's done. Maybe get involved with some of the projects he's made that are helping people. And Jeremy, what a great pleasure to just have you on. I've been a big fan for a while here and following you. And
it means a lot.
So it's a great honor to me to have you on the show. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, check out jeremycowart.com, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening. If there's a show you've missed, you can go to my website, rickaltizer.com, and catch up. Or you can listen to my podcast in iTunes or wherever you hear your podcasts. Just search for The Rick Altizer Show. Altizer is spelled Altizer. I want to thank you for listening. Hey, would you tell a friend about this show and share the love? Be sure to check us out again next week as we discuss how we communicate the gospel through media to our culture. Let's be clear so the world can hear. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.